When do you take a cookie to the doctor?
When?
When it feels crummy.
I thought it was like giving the cookie to the doctor.
Oh, no. It's when the cookie feels crummy.
Gotcha.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Winter from theredparty.com. This week, we're talking about Christmas food traditions.
Oh?
Yes.
Exciting.
Let's talk about it.
You're looking for Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.
Oh my gosh, Sharon, how's your week been? Has anything been very tasty or not so tasty? We're kind of getting into the holidays here. It's about full swing. Have you eaten anything good so far?
Yes, I actually ate something that I was surprised was good.
Oh.
Because I was trying to make a really quick dinner.
Okay.
And I saw this one pot pasta and I decided to make it.
So those I feel like could be an amazing thing, or they could be
Totally gross.
a disaster.
Yep.
And?
This was amazing.
Oh, good.
It's from the website Damn Delicious.
Okay.
And it's a zucchini mushroom pasta. It's one pot. So the noodles cook in with the vegetables in the water.
Okay.
And it's amazing because it cooks for about 20 minutes or so. And the noodles absorb all of the water. And then there's just a tiny bit of water left over and you make a sauce with that. You just pour in some cream and sugar or not sugar. It's not cookies. You pour in cream and cheese.
Right.
And mix it all together. And then it's like this yummy, creamy, magical thing.
And it worked out.
Yeah, it was good. Zucchinis,
Yay.
mushroom, let's see what else. Peas, garlic,
And cheese.
Yummy. And cheese.
Yay, for winning
Good
dinner.
pasta. Yeah. What did you eat this week?
Okay, so I had two things that I ate this week. Can I just share both of them? Because one of them was a little bit of a disaster and the other one was awesome.
Oh.
So,
Okay, let's hear about the disaster.
as you may know, I have an Instant Pot now.
Yes.
And if you don't know what that is, it's a multi-cooker, but it has this nice feature of having a pressure cooker, so things can be made a little bit quicker. Just a side note, everybody, though, it does take a minute not just a minute, it takes a little bit to get up to up to pressure. And so even though it says, cooking time's 18 minutes, it might take 5 minutes to get up to pressure.
Oh, okay.
So
That's good to know.
We were learning a little bit more about this week, and Lee decided to make some pork chops, and he wanted to have apples and onions and cinnamon, and even use like an apple juice to be the liquid.
Oh, okay.
To kind of create
infuse
the steam,
some flavor.
Infuse a flavor, but also to create the steam that is needed to increase the pressure to start doing the pressure cooking, right?
Right.
So that did not turn out well.
Oh, the pork chops are the fail?
Yeah.
What?
The pork
what
chops
happened?
they were just so dry. And I think it was because we were concerned. And so we were just going off of the Instant Pot like guide for cooking meat. And so they said a certain amount of time. I think it was like 16 minutes or something for pork chops. And I think we were a little concerned that they weren't going to get done. So we added we did it 18 minutes instead of 16 minutes. Yeah. And so they just turned out really dry. The
Do you
sauce,
think 16 minutes would have worked?
I think
like
so.
2 whole minutes earlier?
Totally. I think it would have.
Oh,
In fact, I think we
no.
could have probably cut back even more than that because we like our pork chops just right at the edge of where it needs to be, right? Like the cutoff of the temperature. And so I really think we could have gotten even less than that. If anybody has any comment on that, we would love to hear it because I'm still learning. So
what kind of pork chops were you using? Are these bone-in?
No, they were bone out and didn't have a lot of.
How thick was the meat?
It was about, I'd say, 1.5 inches.
Oh, okay. So
fair,
that's substantial.
It's a good sized pork chop. And so once again, the sauce was wonderful. Like,
oh, okay.
It was really tasty. The apples were.
So good idea to use the apple cider.
Yeah, I feel like that was really good. And the onions and the apples they just contributed really well, but the pork chops were really dry. Okay, so if anybody can help me solve my pork chop problem, that'd be great.
Did you end up eating the pork chops?
I did.
Or were they not salvageable?
So we both ate one, but we had 4, and they're currently, the other 2 are still sitting in the fridge.
So you did save them. You're just not looking forward to eating them.
It'll happen at some point in time, I guess. But then the other thing so we were like, okay, that was a little bit of a disaster, but we're going to try again. And I found a recipe for beef stroganoff.
Oh, okay.
And that was awesome.
Oh, you ate beef stroganoff this week?
Yes. And we made it in the Instant Pot. And I used a recipe from Pressure Cooking Today. And I thought that was really good. I felt like it was she explained everything well because I'm a novice when it comes to the Instant Pot.
Sure, yeah.
But I really enjoyed that. So I will post that recipe link in the show notes. But yeah, that was really tasty. I felt like it was.
So I happen to know that Lee really likes beef stroganoff because we have gone out to dinner
at the Dodo.
Yes, where they have an excellent beef stroganoff dish.
They do.
Does it compare?
Not quite.
Okay.
I will say that the beef was super tender, which I love. And I think it was probably more tender than what we've had before when we've gone out.
Oh,
but the sauce is still, I feel like there's something that we need to do with the sauce.
Okay. So you feel like you could kind of fiddle with it and make it awesome.
Yeah. So I think it's a good start.
Okay.
So, but we'll let you know if we find anything else, if we improve upon it. How about that?
Excellent.
And now for the main course.
Okay. And let's get down to our first topic at hand, which is
Christmas food traditions.
And some of them are unusual.
Yes, they are. We just had a lot of fun talking about this. And I think one thing that we're going to start out with, though, was some facts about Christmas that Sharon found.
Yes.
Which I found highly entertaining.
Unusual, random Christmas facts. Like, did you know that Christmas is a contraction of the words Christ's Mass, which was derived from the Old English Christus Mass, and the letter X in Greek is the first letter of the word Christ. So the word Xmas has been used as an abbreviation for Christmas since the mid-1500s.
So I think there is definitely a hullabaloo when it comes to the Xmas.
A definite hullabaloo.
So everybody, you don't have to be up in arms about it.
Yeah.
Because Christmas is still in the Xmas.
Yeah.
Christ is still in the Xmas.
Yes. Greeks, they've got it. So here's a cool, fun science fact, science-ish. So this was figured out in the late 90s in a book called, it's a really cool name, The Physics of Christmas, from the aerodynamics of reindeer to the thermodynamics of turkey. Nice. And unfortunately, it's not a turkey fact. It's a Santa Claus fact.
Okay, let's hear the Santa Claus fact.
So at the time in the late 90s, UNICEF had estimated that there are 2,106 million children under the age of 18 in the world.
Okay.
So if you take that number and you make an average, like you say that the average household in the world has 2.5 children.
Okay.
Santa would have to make 842 million stops on Christmas Eve, traveling a total of 221 million miles.
Okay.
So
that's a lot. That's just a lot, Santa.
So how fast was the train coming at the reindeer? No. So to reach all 842 million stops, Santa would need to travel between houses at a rate of 2/10,000ths of a second, which means he would need to accelerate at 12.19 million miles per second on each stop. And the force of this acceleration would reduce Santa to chunky salsa.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, that's kind of a food fact.
Yeah.
But I mean, nobody wants to eat Santa unless it's a chocolate Santa.
No. Gross.
The word wassail is from the Old Norse, which the words veshael, meaning good health.
Yeah.
So go wassailing.
Go good healthing.
Santa Claus is based on a real person who was Saint Nicholas of Myra, known as a few other names like Bishop Saint Nicholas of Smyrna, Nicholas of Bari, and Nicholas the Wonder Worker. And he lived during the 4th century and was born in Patara, which is modern day Turkey.
Okay, I was like, I don't know where that's at.
Yeah, me neither. And he's the world's most popular non-biblical saint. Artists have portrayed him more often than any other saint, except for Mary.
Right.
And he is the patron saint of a few things.
Like what?
Many unrelated things, but it's pretty fun to go through the list.
Okay.
So he's the patron saint of banking, pawnbroking, which I suppose could kind of go together.
Yeah, yeah.
Pirating.
Oh, yeah, because they need a patron saint. Pirates.
Yes. butchery, food fact,
Okay.
sailing, thievery, orphans, which is like the opposite of thievery, I think.
Yeah. But orphans, okay, I kind of like that.
He is also the patron saint of royalty, just in general, and New York City.
Hey, New York City, patron saint. Wow.
So, and the Christmas stocking allegedly evolved from 3 sisters who were very poor, and they were too poor to afford a marriage dowry. And therefore, they were doomed to a life of prostitution. But they were saved when the wealthy Bishop St. Nicholas of Smyrna crept down their chimney and generously filled their stockings that they had washed and laid out to dry on the chimney. He filled them with gold coins.
Really?
Yeah.
Saved them from a life of prostitution.
Yeah. Go Christmas.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Also, according to data analyzed from Facebook posts, 2 weeks before Christmas is one of the most popular times for couples to break up.
Oh, I can see that.
However, Christmas Day is the least favorite day for breakups.
Well, that makes sense. You're like, well, okay, we're already here.
Yeah, now it's too late.
It's too late.
So you should have done that right around now, people.
Yeah. If
break up.
Okay, well, no.
If you're thinking of it, I'm just saying, I'm trying to help you out.
Yeah, because there's like gifts involved, or maybe spending time with people that you are not quite comfortable with it. Yeah, it kind of makes
If
sense.
you don't want to invest, you can get rid of him.
Or her, or whatever, right?
Yeah. Save your money, gift it to some charity, to yourself.
Yes.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself to a massage.
Exactly. You've earned it probably from this being in a terrible relationship. Anyway, other fun Christmas fact is about oysters.
Oysters?
Yes. They are a Christmas food.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not a Christmas food in my house, but okay, let's talk. Let's talk about this.
So Christmas and oysters. I've seen a lot of stuffings, a lot of dressing recipes.
Oh yeah, oyster
using
dressing.
Oysters.
Okay.
Oyster dressing. So I've seen a lot of those.
You know what, my friend Leslie, I don't know if you ever knew her, but
I
she
don't think so.
she was one of my roommates, I think probably before you moved in next door. But her mom made this amazing stuffing. It was amazing. Like, it's my favorite to this day. And I still haven't figured out how to do it the way her mom does it. It makes me a little sad.
Leslie, if you're listening, please give Winter a hint on that recipe, because I have wanted to try oyster stuffing for forever. I've only tried it once, and it was many years ago.
And did you like it?
I did. And I remember liking it, but I'm too afraid to make it.
Yeah. I tried
it.
I
don't know. I mean, I've seen some recipes and I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to commit myself to making oyster dressing.
Because oysters are expensive too.
They can be pricey, yeah.
So I made it once and it didn't turn out as good. It was really disappointing because hers is so good. It's good. And mine was just like, meh, little mediocre. Wah-wah. Sad trombone.
Okay,
let's hear this story about oysters and Christmas.
So early Americans, early pilgrims, settlers, when they first arrived at Plymouth Rock, oysters were plentiful, they were reliable, and they were a tasty source of nutrition.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah. So the Native Americans had already been harvesting them for over 3,000 years.
Yeah.
And as the colony's population grew and spread over much of the East Coast, folks along the shores of the East Coast just ate the oysters up really good. So they made them in stuffings, chowders, roasts, or just ate them on the half shell. And both rich and poor alike ate oysters. Some fun fact is America's oldest still operating restaurant is the Union Oyster House of Boston. And it opened in 1826 and showcased oysters. Because it's the Union Oyster House.
They should.
And New York City, people... like street vendors used push carts and sold oysters by the bushel.
Really?
That were freshly harvested from the Hudson Bay.
Man.
And in the year 1880, I don't know how they calculated this, but this is according to stats on the History Channel. So I'm assuming that they have done their homework. In the year 1880, 700 million oysters were harvested from the Hudson Bay.
Oh, that is a lot.
Right?
That seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Did they over harvest them?
They didn't go on to say,
Okay.
but
It just seems like that's
they're
a
still
lot.
there.
Okay.
I mean, they haven't depleted the population that much.
Okay.
The oyster bonanza, if you will, the oyster,
Yes.
eating in mass, I suppose, coincided with mass immigrations of Irish settlers to the U.S. Even before the potato famine in 1840, Irish immigrants came to America, just for fresh starts, better lives, all that kind of good stuff. And the vast majority of the Irish immigrants were Catholic.
Okay.
And so because they were Catholic, they observed strict dietary guidelines around holidays. And one of those was not partaking meat on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
So fish was the protein of choice.
Okay, was
instead.
allowed.
Yeah. So, but in Ireland, they ate a dried fish typically on Christmas Eve called ling. Cooks would make it in stews and different things like that, stuffings, stuff like that. And they would make it with milk, butter, and pepper. And this dried ling would melt into that, and it was salted for preservation. So it made this really rich, yummy broth. But there's no ling in the U.S.
Right.
So they used oysters.
Oh.
Because they have a similar flavor profile. Because
Really?
they're salty and briny, and they can be chewy, like preserved ling.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. That was very resourceful of them.
yeah. Oysters were so popular into the mid 1800s that you didn't even have to live by the shore, by the coasts, to enjoy them.
Because they were able to be shipped or...
Yeah, they were able to be
moved
shipped,
and
and they
transported.
were pickled and canned and even dried.
I can't imagine a dried oyster. Let me think about that for a minute. I'm sure
I've
it's
had
fine.
fried oysters, and I've had oysters on the shell.
I feel like I've
Which
had
are
oysters.
those raw? I'm
Yes.
not sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've had raw oysters and I've had fried oysters.
I feel like the canned oysters that would be fine,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not totally sure about dried oysters. Okay, continue. I'm just thinking about it.
So the most popular thing that these Irish cooks would make, though, was oyster stew. And so that became a very popular Christmas Eve traditional dish in
Interesting.
early America.
Really? Oyster stew?
Yeah.
Because of Irish Americans that had
Yes.
come, and they were just trying to be resourceful.
Yeah.
That
Pretty
is
cool, huh?
Yeah, that is really cool. So I had no idea oysters were such a tradition for some people.
Yeah. But apparently, it's a thing. So it's not a thing in my house. I think most of my family members think I'm a weirdo because I even like fish, but I love oysters too. Like I know a lot of people can't stomach them, but I like them.
I like them too.
So
that's so interesting. Oyster stew. That's not one thing I would think of when it comes to traditional Christmas food, honestly.
Well,
I think of other things like the sweet stuff, maybe. I think that's kind of what comes to mind.
yeah, for sure. Like all of the baking and the cookies and stuff like
totally.
that. One tradition that my family actually has upheld for years is the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, wait. I think I know what you're talking about.
The fruitcake.
Yes.
Speaking of my family.
I was going to say that I've heard like not horror stories, but like these, I don't know if they're myths or not, but people that just keep re-gifting.
Well, because you're not going to eat it.
Well, I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah, it's gross. Fruitcake's gross.
Okay, for those who may not know what a fruitcake is, what is a fruitcake?
Well, so
I
there's
feel
different
like
renditions.
I was about to say, isn't
colloquially?
that's
Is
hard.
that I cannot pronounce that word. Sorry. Anyway, figuratively, is that a good synonym? I'm not sure. But I mean, sometimes people refer to fruitcake as any cake that has some type of fruit in it.
Bits of fruit.
Right.
And aren't they usually dried?
Yeah, they're usually candied or dried. And it's usually kind of like a darker cake, more like a spice cake, but it's pretty dense.
Yeah.
And a lot of people flavor it with alcohol.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is why it has such a long shelf life.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. So not all fruitcakes have alcohol in them. When you commercially purchase a fruitcake, they'll usually say whether or not it has alcohol in it. Like they'll say alcohol free or not.
I don't think. How much alcohol are we talking? Do you know what the proportion is? Is it a lot?
Some people put a ton in there. Okay. Another really cool, really random food fact. is that when fruitcake contains a lot of alcohol, it can remain edible for many years. It can have a long shelf life if you're using alcohol to preserve it, basically.
Oh my goodness.
So,
and alcohol is used to preserve things. So
funny fact is that there was a fruitcake baked in 1878 that is still kept as an heirloom by the Ford family in Michigan.
no way. Like to this day.
Well, in 2003, Jay Leno famously sampled a piece of this cake on The Tonight Show.
Really?
Yeah.
They let him have some?
I'm surprised, but apparently, yeah. So
I don't think
know
I
if we
would
could
cut
find
into
that
that.
YouTube clip on there or not, but
I'll see if I can find it.
yeah, gross.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So, and a lot of people also, not only does it contain a good deal of alcohol, but by wrapping the cake in alcohol-soaked linen before storing it
What?
is another way to extend the shelf life.
What?
Basically, you've got something flammable in your pantry. Because, I mean, we're not talking about they're leaving it in the refrigerator.
No, it's just sitting on the shelf.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yikes.
So
I had
mean,
no idea that there was so much alcohol
It's like,
involved.
oh my gosh, so much. And different countries have different methods for making fruitcake. Some have alcohol, some don't. Some ice their fruitcakes. Some people ice them.
Oh.
So in the Bahamas, this was my favorite because it was just really funny. Not only is the fruitcake drenched with rum, but the ingredients are as well. All of the candied fruits, walnuts, and raisins are placed in an enclosed container and are soaked with the darkest variety of rum, anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months in advance.
What?
I mean, you take a bite out of that raisin and you are
That is a
done.
boozy raisin. A boozy raisin.
So the cake ingredients are mixed, and then once the cake's finished baking, rum's poured onto it while it's still hot, so it soaks in.
It soaks in. Yeah.
Kind of like a
makes sense.
Trislet Chase
Yeah.
type thing.
That's a lot of rum.
So much rum. So a fruitcake's been made for years and years and years and years. Like in the Middle Ages, ancient Rome, there's an early recipe actually from ancient Rome that lists pomegranate seeds, pine nuts, and raisins mixed into a barley mash. But yeah, in the colonies, again, colonial times, they discovered that through high concentrations of sugar, they could preserve fruits.
Which makes sense because, high concentrations of sugar.
So that made fruitcakes popular by making the candied fruit and stuff like that.
Right.
There's also some of the most well-known mail order fruitcake companies are in the South, in Texas and Georgia, where there are a plentiful and inexpensive supply of nuts.
Oh, yes, that's right. Because aren't there pecans and almonds and
Yeah, so that's why the expression "nutty as a fruitcake" came about.
Nutty as a fruitcake.
All the nuts that are put into fruitcake. Something funny is that there are a couple members of my family who love fruitcake. Most of them have since passed away. My dad's still going strong, and he is a huge fruitcake fan.
He is.
Yes. But when my grandparents were alive, they liked to eat fruitcake, and so did some of my older relatives,
right?
Great aunts and uncles and things like that. And my family has a white elephant party every year.
I feel like I know where this is going.
Yeah. So there was a fruitcake that was passed around at the white elephant party as a joke because my grandmother used to make every family a fruitcake for Christmas.
Which is super nice.
Super nice.
It's super nice.
Super wasteful.
Super wasteful.
Nobody would eat it.
Nobody ate them at all.
So unless there was one solitary family member in the household that would eat the fruitcake, which was not always the case. So my cousin, I think it was a cousin or my uncle, one year brought the previous year's fruitcake that my grandmother made to the white elephant party.
Was grandmother there?
Yes, she was.
She was?
She was gifted the fruitcake, in fact. And my family are not drinkers. So I feel like I should point that out.
And
so
this
a
was
year later.
Wait, really quickly. Was this an alcohol?
No.
fruitcake.
So my family
So
are not
definitely-
drinkers.
because it's definitely
they're
not an-
teetotalers,
Okay.
if you will. So there was no alcohol in this fruitcake.
Okay.
Because of this, it renders apparently the fruitcake a year later as unrecognizable. So Grandma tried to light the fruitcake on fire because she thought it was a candle.
No, she did not.
Yes, she did.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it was great fun.
So was it like super shriveled? I'm assuming it was super shriveled
It
up.
was just like
hard.
condensed, waxy,
Really?
real weird texture.
How was she trying? Was there something that
She
looked like
thought
a
it was
wick?
I mean, I don't know. She thought it was a candle though. So
I
she
bet it was
like
a
it was wrapped in
Probably some.
some paper, and she just unwrapped it and she set it up and did.
Did she? Did anybody ever tell her that it was a fruitcake that she had made the previous year?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And was she super offended?
I don't know. I mean, my family, they're big teasers.
Mm-hmm.
My grandma would tease.
Oh,
I
that
mean,
is.
not too terrible, but she raised a bunch of teasers,
Yeah.
and so she was used to it.
Oh my goodness.
And so everyone, including my grandpa, laughed. Like everybody just had a really good laugh about it.
And she
So-
tried to light it like a candle.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
So they can be edible or not edible after a period of time.
Depending on
If you want it edible, it should definitely have alcohol.
definitely have alcohol in it. Oh man, that is
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
That would have been a pretty entertaining white elephant gift party, I think.
It usually is because the funny gifts are recycled year after year.
You're like, I remember that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another reason why fruitcake's the gift that keeps on giving, because I've done it at work before too. When you do a gift exchange at work, I brought back a fruitcake that one of the physicians had brought in. He was an older gentleman, and he got the fruitcake the next year, and he was really ticked about it.
Oh, why? He brought it.
He's like, well, I thought other people like it, and he hates fruitcake, apparently.
Well, you're not the only one.
Yeah. Pretty great.
Pretty great. I would like to get a fruitcake for a white elephant gift sometime. I think that would be really fun to have.
Yeah. It's a good one to add to your rotation.
Okay.
Keep it in the rotation. Don't eat it.
Save that fruitcake, everybody, and give it to me. Okay, just one. I don't want a lot. I just want one.
That is hungrysquared@gmail.com if you would like to get an address to send the cake to Winter.
Well, I don't think I've ever had one before. Like, I've never eaten anything before that is a fruitcake. I think I'm sure there's an Asian version of that. Maybe a moon cake.
Yes, I've heard moon cake is similar.
So, because those are like super dense little cakes that are celebrated during the Mid-Autumn Festival. But I'm wondering if I would like the fruit cake. Because whenever I see fruitcakes, I see those like little bits of like really bright red and green pieces of fruit that have been artificially dyed.
I mean, not even a maraschino cherry is that color. Like, it's not natural.
Yeah, they glow.
My favorite is that everybody will reassure you that their fruitcake is good fruitcake. Oh, I know you don't like fruitcake, but you should try my fruitcake. It's actually really good. It never is. It never is. Stop lying. Stop the lies.
Just don't do it.
Good.
Well, you know what? Fruitcake actually reminds me of gingerbread. Sort of. I think
because it's something that you don't eat.
No, well, sort of to a certain point. I've eaten gingerbread too, and
I'll eat it.
I think there's kind of two different things about gingerbread some that can be eaten and some that can be used for structure.
For houses.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about gingerbread today because I love gingerbread because that was something I never made when I was a kid, and I really haven't made it too much either as an adult, but I think it's fascinating. So there's actually quite a long history of gingerbread.
Oh.
They don't really know exactly when gingerbread came into existence, but there is a known recipe in Greece dating back to, I believe it was, let me just make sure I have the 2400 BC. And there have been different Chinese recipes that are out there, and from the 10th century. So, but they do say that like the Crusaders brought those over to Europe, And that's when
Oh,
it kind of
wow.
started to take off there. So,
Okay.
and I thought this was really interesting because because they started to gain popularity in Europe, they started making these little kind of cookie type things, and they would be in shapes, little hard cookies that were in the shapes of flowers, and sometimes like armor, because it was very popular during some of these medieval festivals and fairs. And some of these fairs were considered gingerbread fairs. And
What?
yeah, yeah, they would actually have these festivals and have these gingerbread cookies at these festivals. And Queen Elizabeth I actually is credited for decorating those cookies in such a way that it kind of gained popularity. She would like decorate them in such a way that they were like the nobility that was visiting the court.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, right?
Little favors.
So you can see that it's like starting to like, this is a hard cookie, but they're being used as a lot of decoration type things. So,
Okay.
so they were really kind of getting into that more and more. So gingerbread houses kind of took off in Germany during the 16th century. And so you can imagine those, elaborate, and I love looking at those. Have you ever watched those Food Network, like gingerbread house challenge
Oh
things?
my gosh.
Those are
Yeah.
so fun. I love those.
It's intricate.
It is amazing to see those being done, but it gained popularity in Germany because of the Brothers Grimm story of Hansel and Gretel, where they come upon this house that is completely made out of sweets, right? Sweets, treats, that kind
And
of
they
thing.
eat it.
Yeah. And there's not really, it's kind of a chicken and egg type of a situation where they don't know if it was that type of, the story created more popularity for gingerbread houses or vice versa. Like gingerbread houses gave ideas to the Brothers Grimm to talk about a sweet house.
Okay.
So
yeah, that makes
they don't
sense.
know exactly when that all went down. So I like some of the things that the German people have done. So they have these gingerbread cookies, and they're called Lebkuchen. I hope I'm saying that right. Lebkuchen. And they usually have these gingerbread cookies at street festivals, and you will have them shaped in hearts, and they will actually scrawl out messages in like an icing.
Oh,
so
like a conversation heart.
yeah, it's like a
Valentine's
conversation
Day.
heart that the Germans came up with. And so they have messages on them. So one of them is like, alles was ich brach bist du, which is all I need is you. Or
Aw.
du bist einfach super. You're really super.
Nice.
Is what it
Super.
translates. Yeah, exactly.
I know how to say super in
Yeah,
German now.
exactly.
That's great.
So I kind of thought that was really awesome. And I think that's basically a conversation heart way back when.
So when were those around?
So I think this one, they don't specifically say that time, but in the 16th century is when gingerbread really started to take off in Germany.
okay.
So I'm assuming just kind of from that point in time.
But the you are super is probably a more modern.
It may be, I think it may be a little bit more modern, but I do love the fact that they have these little gingerbread conversation hearts.
Cute.
I think they're adorable. So it's not, rather there is a lot of discussion about gingerbread and gingerbread like cookies. So there are, sometimes you can talk about gingerbread as being that's kind of more of a soft bread type thing that you put in a loaf pan.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there is actually
Like a spice loaf.
like a spice loaf. And in fact, there was,
Pancake-ish.
when the English colonists came, that was a really popular thing. And there was a recipe that was the first American cookbook called American Cookery by Amelia Simons has a recipe with 3 types of gingerbread, including this soft variety. Because whenever I think of gingerbread, I think of the snap, the very
The
rigid
hard,
cookie.
thin cookies.
Yes, exactly. But this one is a gingerbread that's baked in loaves, and this is the recipe. And I know you like listening to old recipes. I think I think it's fascinating because you're like, I don't.
What are you going to do with a whole pound of sugar? That's what I want to know.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so
Okay.
and this is how it's phrased. It says, number 2, rub 3 pounds of sugar.
Oh my gosh.
And it says rub. I love that. Rub
Rub it on your body.
rub 3 pounds of sugar, 2 pounds of butter into 4 pounds of flour.
Oh
Add
gosh.
20 eggs, 4 ounces of ginger, 4 spoons of rose
How big
water.
is this vat?
I don't know.
You must have a vat to cook in.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh.
But get this, 4 spoons of rose water, bake as number 1. And I'm not sure what the number 1, number 2 stand for. That's all I got for the
1 log on your fire.
I don't know. And George Washington's mother, Mary Bell Washington, is also known for her gingerbread recipe, and it's a soft version as well, but it's passed down through all these generations of Washington, and it's known as gingerbread Lafayette because of that. Yeah,
Wow.
It has a long history.
I love those old family recipes. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering, really, if I'm assuming they've adapted it, because I mean, who's going to make that much gingerbread? I guess
you're going to rub your butter and your sugar around in your flour.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe they mean to cream it together in their KitchenAid.
It probably it has changed. I am sure it has changed. If anybody is from the Washington family and has the gingerbread Lafayette recipe, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, okay?
I would love to time travel or have somebody from the past walk in one of our kitchens today and just be like, what the heck is this
what
thing?
Are
and
you
they're
doing?
Looking at the stove or what. I mean, I just wonder what they would think.
Well, our
of what we
Instant
have
Pot,
now.
they're like, what is this magical contraption you have here?
I imagine they'd probably be afraid of it. I don't
Yeah.
know. But you'd have to explain so much.
So
we don't
much.
have fires in the kitchen anymore.
Or
if we do, it's an accident.
at some point in time, I think we're gonna have a guest on to talk about recipes and cookbooks and how those have evolved in time, because it really does have a lot to do with the technology. I think,
Yeah.
Accessibility to ingredients. I mean, it's changed.
Known methods available.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
exactly. So the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit of design centric. Let's talk about gingerbread houses.
Let's do.
Have you?
Oh,
I was going to ask you, and I think you're asking me the same question. Have you ever built a gingerbread house?
yes, I was going to ask you that. So I have, although I've never made a gingerbread house out of gingerbread.
Wait, what did you make it out of?
Graham crackers.
Oh, well, that's fine, right? I mean, it's not
But
the
it's not
traditional.
gingerbread.
It's not gingerbread, but you still kind of get the same effect, right?
Yeah.
You can
So-
make walls and a roof.
I had a friend so that's what I always made when I was a kid. My mom would make some frosting, or she'd buy some frosting with the graham crackers and candies, and we would decorate gingerbread houses. And we did this several years when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just fun, whatever. We'd do it on a Saturday or something. As an adult, that's what I thought, in
Real
ancient
gingerbread.
times, they made gingerbread houses, and in modern times, we make graham cracker houses. And I'm pretty sure maybe my mom couched it that way to me. I don't know. But so as an adult, I had a friend who was making a gingerbread house, and she had extra gingerbread and offered me a piece, and I thought it was quite gross.
Did you eat it?
I did.
Tasted it.
Yeah, I did.
Well,
And this was when I was younger, like a young adult, I suppose. And so as I've been exposed to more gingerbread recipes,
yes.
and home baked goods that aren't graham crackers. We liked graham crackers at my house. Maybe that's why my mom did them. I don't know. I found that gingerbread can be really good, or it can be not as good.
I feel like, yes,
But,
I think I would
I've
agree
had
with
some
you.
tasty gingerbread.
So I've had tasty gingerbread as well. And I think there's a difference between something that you're going to make like gingerbread men that are usually, I mean, it's cute, but you also are planning on consuming it.
Right. Versus a house.
Because let's talk about this. So this is architecture. You do have to kind of be an architect when you build a gingerbread house, I think.
Oh yeah.
You got to take into a lot of things into consideration as you are creating this. Okay, so let's really quickly talk about your basic structure. So the gingerbread, first of all, you need to have a gingerbread dough. You need to have something that is sturdy and is going to demonstrate some sort of elasticity. And when I say elasticity, it has to be able to resist. And if you're going to push against it, it's not going to crack.
Oh, because I was just thinking, that's what you use the brittle gingerbread.
Yes.
For.
But it has to have some sort of little bit of give too also with it. And because there's going to be stress on the structure because of, say, the roof resting on the walls, there needs to be enough resistance. So it's got to be sturdy enough that's going to be able to uphold the roof and not collapse under all that pressure. So you do need something that's tough. You need something that has a little bit of spring to it. And I'm not talking like it's not bendy or anything like that. I'm saying that when something is against it, it's not going to crack.
Collapse.
Yeah, it's not going to be too brittle. And then so that means that you should have as least amount of moisture in it, because I think that definitely lends to being something a little bit more breakable or bendable.
Softer, collapsible.
So the way you achieve this, and here I would love to hear anybody that has made like gingerbread houses for a competition or display or professionally. I don't know. Do you make are there professional gingerbread makers? I'm sure there are.
Oh yeah, there's gotta be.
That's
a niche.
That's a niche for sure. This one particular site that I was kind of looking into, it's called Science and Food, run by the UCLA Division of Life Sciences and Department of Integrated Biology and Physiology. It's quite.
Oh,
they really are getting.
I know them.
Yeah, exactly. So they talk about using a flour with a higher protein content, such as bread flour, because we've talked about gluten before in one of our previous episodes. I think it was our first episode on pie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Structure.
In order to create gluten, you have two kind of different proteins, the glutenin and the gliadin proteins. Yep. And when you have enough of those, then you get some elastic properties with that.
Right. Which is why you don't want to overwork your dough, because it gets kind of tough and really stretchy.
Yeah. But you do want to work it enough to create the stretch and also the binding of those proteins. That's what creates the gluten. So, and that's kind of the key to your gingerbread, the structure part. Let's talk about the glue or the cement, right? To put it together.
Are we talking about royal icing?
Yes, we're going to talk about icing. So one thing what's the difference between royal icing versus something like a buttercream frosting?
Ooh, royal icing is more stiff.
Yes.
Sugar based?
Oh, yes. It has sugar. And the thing that
I guess they both have sugar, but...
Well, and I'm not totally sure if royal icing is the correct term here, but it is an icing that generally has egg whites in it.
Okay.
So because what happens when egg whites are beaten, so those eggs proteins denature, and when I say denature, that's let me just back up and say that when a protein is denatured, that means that it loses its structure and it doesn't do what that protein's supposed to do. It no longer works that way. And then they denature and then they coagulate. And when I say coagulate, that means they just kind of separate themselves out and kind of solidify with each other. So that's what I mean. And so the denaturation, I don't know if that's a word, but I just made it up. Denaturation and the coagulation of these proteins from the egg help stabilize the air bubbles that were beaten in when you're beating the egg whites. So as to create, they talk about creating foamy peaks that are stiff.
Yes.
And you take your little whisk and it basically defies gravity, right? It stays straight up. You want that kind of stiff peaks, because then once those air bubbles are there, and those coagulated proteins, they will create a really strong paste, I guess is a good way of putting it. The problem with buttercream frosting, you can't use buttercream frosting because the only thing that you have in buttercream frosting is the proteins that are in milk, and it's usually not very much, or the butter, right?
Oh,
the milk or the butter
milk solids.
Yeah. So the proteins are not there to denature, and there's just not enough to create something that is stiff and will help maintain the air bubbles that you have beaten into your peaks. Does that make sense?
That's cool.
I know, like kind of crazy to think about how those two key ingredients. Now, one thing I read another article about a couple of people that were looking at alternative cement type things.
What's the alternative?
So people have melted marshmallows because they are once they're melted, they're really spreadable. They are
marshmallow cream.
But once they dry, it is pretty awesome and cementy.
Okay.
The other thing was gummy bears.
Do they melt the gummy bears?
Yeah, totally melt the gummy bears and use that to
gelatin.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once again, spreadable. And able to, so it's gummy bears and gumdrops and will harden again. So that could be a good glue if you need things to be reinforced.
Who knows how that's going to taste though?
Oh no, we're not eating this gingerbread house. We are not eating this gingerbread house. But if you want something to stay put, that's a good maybe a good route if you want to reinforce some stuff. So, and then the last thing to kind of consider is all of your forces and the height you can build your gingerbread house. You could collapse something because your gingerbread could buckle.
Yeah, it's like building a house of cards, right?
Yep. Or or you're building anything in period, right?
True.
And so you got to think about all of the forces that are pushing down on things. So the forces of the sloping gingerbread roof, which includes friction from the frosting.
And you don't have a trussed roof.
Yeah. I mean, like there's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration. So in order to kind of prevent collapsing, then they do recommend a wider structure with a flatter rooftop. Will be much sturdier, obviously, than kind of a narrow house with quite a sloping roof, because then you're just not transferring your energy a certain way. And I'm going to link to this because there's actually a formula that you could calculate how tall your gingerbread house should be and what might cause some buckling at some point in time. So
engineer friends, weigh in.
Yes. I'm sure because I feel like I've only made graham cracker houses and they've only been one story.
Yeah. Because my gingerbread houses have never been more than one story.
Yeah, but have you seen some of these ones that are ginormous?
They're like castles and stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Amazing. So I want to finish up with one thing. The Guinness World Record holder for the largest gingerbread house is in Bryan, Texas.
Oh,
and
I know where that is.
You do?
Actually.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I guess you are from that area-ish, right? Okay. So
that's funny to me. Okay.
Let me tell
it's
you.
In Bryan, Texas.
Bryan, Texas. I feel like this is a little bit of a cheater type thing because... And the previous one was the same way, but it had a wood base. But everything else,
they have a solid foundation.
Yes, exactly.
They're not going to build it on sand.
They're not going to build it on sand. So they had a wood base, and then everything else on the outside was, and probably on the inside as well, was all edible, quote unquote, edible.
Okay. Wait, on the inside?
They decorated the inside as well. Like you could walk into this house.
You could walk into it.
It's huge. What are you talking about? No, seriously. It's huge. Okay, so on November 30th, Saturday, November 30th, and this was in the year, I don't actually know what the year is. I'm so sorry. No, 2013. 2013. Sorry.
Okay. 3 years ago.
The structure is 39,201.8 cubic feet.
What?
The previous structure was 36,000 cubic feet. And I want to tell you that it used 1,800 pounds of butter, 7,200 eggs, 3,000 pounds of sugar, 7,200 pounds of flour, and 22,000 pieces of candy to create the house facade.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was insane. Like you look at it, really is like a small house. And you can walk through it.
Could you just like pick off the candy and start munching?
No, I don't think that's a good idea. So just a side note, I really thought this was awesome, but they had a small fee for people to walk through it and look at it and everything. And all of that money went to go help build the St. Joseph's Level 2 Trauma Center at their hospital.
Oh, so that's nice.
I thought that was kind of cool. So I will try and grab a picture of that house, but it's like a house you could walk through.
A house you can lick.
But you probably shouldn't because gross.
Oh. I don't know. Lickable houses?
Whatever. Whatever your preference is. So I thought that was fun. Gingerbread houses are cool.
That's amazing.
I want to build one of these days.
I don't want to build a house though. I'm okay building just a little tabletop house.
Yeah, a cottage is fine. Little cottage.
2,000 square feet.
Oh, I got it. How about this? I'm totally going to make a small house. No, a tiny home. A tiny gingerbread home. It's so trendy right now. Tiny homes, that is.
a 300 square foot tiny home.
Yeah.
Out of a gingerbread house.
Out of a gingerbread house. It's totally doable.
I'd live there, but I'd probably end up eating it. Let's have a food fight.
Food fight, food fight, food fight, food fight. It's winter.
This is the segment where you can email us with your relationship questions relating to food. You can email us at hungrysquared@gmail.com.
Disclaimer, we are in no way professional relationship experts, but you should totally listen to us anyway. If you need professional help, please seek it out.
Food fight, food fight, food fight. The food fight segment of the show. Here we go.
Winter, where's this week's question from? Who is this week's question from? Not where.
Let me pull up the email really fast. Okay. This is what the email says. And I looked it over beforehand because I had to read it a couple times to make sure I said everything correctly. Because this person wrote it kind of colloquially. You'll see what I say. Hi, Sharon and Winter. My family loves to celebrate Christmas together, and we do it with a lot of food. Decadent food. Like, I'm going to gain 12 pounds by looking at it food. That's the part I had to read a couple times. I'd like to celebrate the holiday with food, but not all the food. Any suggestions for not offending my family or gaining 12 pounds, but still enjoying the holiday? Yours, I don't want to make a New Year's resolution.
Oh, I feel ya.
Oh man,
I love the holiday time for all the treats and stuff like that, but the treats add up.
Oh, they add up.
Every day from, yesterday was our first day of it, or the day before.
When you started getting treats?
Yes. Every day at my office, somebody is taking a different day until Christmas vacation.
What?
And bringing treats.
And are these...
No, it's terrible treats.
I was about to say
we're eating popcorn. We're eating like candy mixes. Like today it was those bite-sized brownies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Cuties, like the oranges.
Okay, I like Cuties.
I do too. I love them.
They're the best at this time of the year too.
I've had 5 today.
Good work. You will not get scurvy.
Nope. I've also am embarrassed to admit to how many brownie bites I've had today, but
you won't mention that.
Probably definitely more than the Cuties I had today.
So
they're bite size.
They are bite size. This can be a problem.
Yes.
A real problem for your wardrobe, actually.
Yes. Well, because Christmas is coming. People are gifting you, like you want grandma's sweater to fit that she buys you, don't you?
Don't you? So this person it sounds like food is a huge part of their family tradition.
I think it's a part of most people's traditions.
Yes, I agree.
Honestly, like the neighbor gifts that you give, the work gifts, or, treats that are just around.
Right.
Like I work in healthcare and a lot of people, like I've worked on the clinical side where patients bring in treats.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll get, it's like
tons.
From Thanksgiving literally until Easter, but definitely Valentine's Day usually.
Oh, yeah.
It's like all the time.
Here's a treat.
You're having treats on the daily, like multiple times a day.
Okay. How have you avoided treats then? Have you avoided treats then?
There is some times where I have avoided treats.
So what you're saying?
I'm not a good person to answer this question.
Okay. We're real talking it here. We're real talking. I do too. I love treats.
Yeah.
I am kind of a pansy about that. But one thing I have learned in just many years of trying to avoid gaining, like 20 pounds over the holidays.
Right.
I have found that everybody is it's once again, we kind of talked about goodwill, right? We talked about they bring it because they want to share. And this is the way.
Sure. And they're being grateful or showing appreciation or just showing love.
Yeah. And I think that if you just remember to enjoy maybe one piece of whatever.
Right.
And call it good and just realize that I enjoyed it. I savored and like maybe make a point to savor it because it's not necessarily the food. It's the kind of the intent behind it. And you're like, yeah, thank you for sharing this. This was wonderful.
Yeah.
And
I
think just like realizing I don't need to eat all of it. I can just have a little bit of it and really still participate in all of the festivities that are involved, right?
Yeah. That's what I've done too in the past is when I've tried to be moderate. Oh, and I've done that a few times. More than a few. Okay. I'm not a blimp or whatever.
She's not a blimp, you guys.
But like not tiny either. So I pick favorites.
Yes.
That's something that I do is I'm like, oh, obviously I'm not going to eat grandma's fruitcake, right?
Right.
But it's funny to save it and re-gift it. So, that's one thing you can do with it. Another thing is like some of those neighbor gifts that I'm just like, that's so nice that they brought something and I brought something to them or whatever, but I'm not super attached to it.
Yeah.
You can, I don't know, you could re-gift. I know some people are sensitive about the re-gift. But I also,
I don't
you
know.
know, if you're having people over because it's the holidays and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
having friends over
You can
and you're
leave-
having family over,
you can
just
leave
put
that
it out.
Put it out there. Yeah.
Put it out for them, and they, you know, and that's kind of what it's there for, is everybody knows that there's gatherings and like, hey, here's some treats for your
Yes.
next gathering or whatever. Put the fudge out. But like, I pick my favorites that I like, and I
Yes.
kind of stick to those. The stuff that I only get once a year or whatever,
Mhm.
like people are giving out more common snacks that I'm like, I'll take a pass on that.
Yeah.
But if it's, you know, the homemade caramels that
Yeah.
you know
That
only
people
come
do
out
not
once a
yeah,
year,
that don't,
and it's
they
like
don't
one of
make
your
it.
favorites,
Mhm.
you know, go ahead and eat that.
Yeah. Because you got to think about, like, is this worth the calories?
Right.
'Cause-
Not all calories are created
Yeah,
equal.
because there's definitely been some things that I'm like, if I'm going to have a treat, I'm going to have a dang good treat.
right?
If you
Yeah.
can think about it that way, like, if you don't like brownies, then don't eat the brownie to be nice.
Right. Definitely.
But
But
if-
if you like brownies, keep eating the brownies.
What else, right? But that's the kind of a take that you could do. Just like, is this something that if I'm gonna indulge, I'm gonna indulge in something that is so good to me,
Yeah.
so good.
And at those holiday gatherings, like especially with your family and stuff, if you know that there's going to be decadent food and you're trying to kind of keep on the quote unquote good side with your
Mhm.
calories or
Mhm.
food intake, whatever it is, don't contribute to it. You already know that your favorite Christmas cookies are going to be there. So you don't have to one up your sister and make better Christmas cookies. You already know she makes fantastic
You're like,
cookies.
I'll just eat that, thank you.
So why don't you bring some fruit?
Or a veggie tray.
Yeah. I mean, just bring something to offset the decadence.
Yeah, I was about to say there's something nice
And I'll
about
bet somebody
eating-
more than you, like more than just one person, is going to appreciate that you're just bringing something.
that will cut through the sugar and fat.
Bring some milk, something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. Just moderation, obviously.
Mhm.
And then choose your favorites. I kind of like that. Choose your favorites and just enjoy what you have. And you don't have to have you don't have to have all of it, just some of it.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. Give it to your kids. Thanks for joining us today on our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com, on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music.
You guys, would you do us a favor and subscribe to our podcast and share our podcast with any other food nerdy people in your life? Because
Yeah, you can send a link to them, or you can send an episode to them. I know I can do it on my iPhone.
yeah, it's really fun. So, because then our food nerd family is kind of growing actually, and it's been really fun to hear from you guys. So
It's fun to watch.
We'd love to hear from you further. Send us food fight questions at hungrysquared@gmail.com, and we will hopefully answer that soon on the air. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week on our next episode of Food Nerdery.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry squared, yeah, hungry squared.